Are you just so frustrated with getting pressing lines in your shirt? Well, today we're going to go over a foolproof way to make sure that you get the best results you can every single time you sublimate a shirt. And we're going to go over different types of shirts, what to look out for, and then my foolproof way of pressing shirts without pressing lines. This is definitely not an easy task to do, and I can totally understand your frustration. Until I came up with this sort of experimental way of doing it, I got pressing lines all the time, and I get so frustrated because quality control for me is super important, and I did not want to give my customers something that wasn't perfect. So today we're going to go over how to sublimate a shirt perfect every single time. Okay, the first thing we need to do is gather all of our supplies. I'm going to go over them for you real quick. First is our sublimation transfer, and this is printed on an Sawgrass SG800. I have mirrored my design. My design is 13 inches. I'm putting it on a 2XL shirt today. One thing you can do just to save a little bit of money is move your transfer up and then cut this part off and turn it into a mug size paper. For this tutorial, I just left it in the center. But we do need our sublimation ink printed transfer. Next, we need some foam. This is special high heat foam. I buy it in a pack from Vapor Apparel. It's about $25 for a whole bunch. It even includes some test shirts. And I've really, in 5 or 6 years since I've been pressing shirts, I've really only bought like 2 or 3 of these packs, so it's well worth it. You can buy other foam. You just need to make sure that it will not off-gas something toxic for you, so make sure it can stand up to the high heat. I just like this. It's not a super dense foam or super thick foam, but it works, and it is literally meant for this particular project, which I always find like that I'm trying to make things work that don't, or make things work to make it slightly cheaper, and it's usually just better to buy the original. Then we're going to need our blowout paper, and I actually have 2 different lengths here. I have one a little bit longer and one that just covers my press, and that is purposeful, and I'll show you in a little bit why that is. Then I have repositionable spray. My personal favorite here is Conde Dye Trans Pro Spray 2, but you can totally use Elmer's. Anything that is a non-permanent repositionable spray should work. A lint roller. We're working with fabric, so you definitely need a lint roller. High heat tape. So the reason I use high heat tape with this is I don't want my transfer to shift at all once I get it pressing. And this sort of low-tack high heat tape works really well for that. Then you definitely need a shirt. And this has to be polyester. Minimum, I would say, is 65% polyester. And this one is 100% polyester. This one is actually by Vapor Apparel. It's the Vapor Apparel basic line in heather gray. And what I love is these shirts are literally meant to be sublimated. And so they are less likely to get pressing lines. And we're going to talk about what to look for in shirts here in just a minute. And then this is a total bonus item. This is a t-shirt square, and I'll link to all of this in the description. But this is just a super easy way to line up transfers on shirts. You can do anything really from about a small, maybe like a youth medium, all the way up through about a 2XL. After that, it becomes a little less accurate, but a ruler also works fine. It just may take you an extra minute. And that is all the supplies we need to get started. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to talk to you guys real quick about what to look for in a sublimation shirt. First, we of course need polyester because that's what sublimation bonds to in the chemical process. And 100% polyester shirts are definitely going to give you the brightest, most vibrant colors, but we don't always have access to them. So I do recommend staying at 65% polyester or more. The less polyester you have, the more faded or vintage look you'll get after you wash it. When you go down below that, really so much washes out that it's not worth it in the end. So this one from Vapor Apparel is a cotton-like feel, and I mean, unless you looked at the tag, you would not know it is not a cotton shirt. And one thing I really like about this particular brand is it's not see-through at all. The white does get a little more see-through, so I stick to the heather gray, and I'm just not a fan of white shirts. But I do still think it's a super quality line of products, and they do have a lot of color options. You don't just have to sublimate on white or gray. You do need to do light colors, but the thing to keep in mind for any sublimation project, whatever color your substrate or your shirt is going to be whatever color kind of comes through your ink just a little bit, and you won't get any white. So if anything in your design is white, that's not going to show up. Sublimation ink is transparent ink, and it doesn't have white ink in it. That's a whole nother process. So I brought two more examples for you. This is from Walmart. It is 100% polyester. It is more like a sports or a moisture wicking shirt. It's their starter brand. This sublimates beautifully, but it does pretty much always leave some sort of pressing lines when you press it. It's a thinner shirt, and the material just accepts those pressing lines way too quickly, and it's very, very hard to prevent them on this. So while I think this is a really good quality shirt to sublimate on, you do have to be really careful with your pressure. And then this is one of the ones that was in my in one of my Vapor Apparel kits, and it's also that moisture wicking type shirt, and it's pretty see-through, so you want to be careful with that in terms of, you know, who's wearing it and where and when and all of that kind of thing. And it's another 100% polyester. These, when they're meant for sublimation, for some reason they've magically woven them so that they don't get as many pressing lines as the ones we get off the rack. Another great brand to try is Jersey's 21M. They are a little bit thinner than the Vapor Apparel, but they still have that cotton feel. And you can prevent the pressing lines, but I do recommend getting a test one or two and just go in different places and try this process, adjusting it as you need to get that perfect press every time. And once you get it, guys, you got it. Just write it down in your sublimation notebook, and you will forever be able to do this. All right, so let's go ahead and get started in making our shirt. Hi, I'm Andrea with My Very Crafty Life, and I am a crafter, a designer, and an author. I have written a crafty guide to sublimation to help you on your sublimation journey. It is for beginners or intermediate, so if you are interested in that, be sure to check out the description below. If you're liking this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you are excited to see more high-quality craft tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel below. Okay, so we have our shirt laid out here, and you can see there aren't really any wrinkles in this, but there might be some moisture due to the humidity in my house. So I am going to pre-press this in a minute. But the first thing I want to do is take my lint roller, and anything that will be under the press, I want to go ahead and lint roll, because otherwise it gets pressed into the shirt and may become a permanent part of it, and I don't want any spots or blotches on my shirt. I'm going to go ahead and do the back as well, because that gets heated up. And then we're going to go ahead and put this in the press as a preheat, and that is when we can really adjust our pressure as well. So let's go to the press. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pre-press our shirt, and this is the time where you'll get out any wrinkles We're going to set our foam down. Right now, it doesn't need to be covered. If you've used it more than a few times, I would go ahead and cover it before you do this step. But mine's brand new, so it's unnecessary. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is get right where I am going to be pressing. I want it to be as flat as possible. So you make sure you get any wrinkles out, whether they're on the top or the bottom of the shirt. They become permanent with this kind of heat. Okay, so we just want to make sure all our wrinkles are out. We've got it laid really, really nicely and under here. And then we do want to go ahead and add our blowout piece of paper on top of this because we do not want anything that might be on our press to get on our shirt. Obviously, we're trying to keep our press as clean as possible, but that just doesn't always happen. So use a piece of butcher paper or a piece of parchment paper every single time. Now, I'm at 390 degrees, and I'm going to pre-press this for about 10 to 15 seconds. You can see my pressure is very light. I have a pressure gauge on mine, and it's only at a 1. I do shirts at about a 1 to a 2, depending on the shirt. If I have wrinkles in my shirt, I do press it just a little bit longer. Now, you can see when I pick this up, maybe, that I don't have any pressing lines. You can't tell where that rectangle of the foam was, and that's really, really important. Because once you get a pressing line, getting rid of them is virtually impossible. So it's all about prevention. Okay, from here, we want to go ahead and prep everything to get the shirt ready to press. So the first thing I'm doing is wrapping my foam in paper. And like I said, if your foam has been used, I do recommend doing this step before you press your shirt. But basically, all I'm doing is protecting the foam from ink getting on it. So I cut a little bit longer piece of butcher paper, and you don't have to make it go all the way around. You can tape right to your foam. I just find this easier in the long run, because when I'm done, I just slide out the foam and recycle the paper. And that is why I use butcher paper as opposed to parchment paper. As butcher paper can be recycled, while parchment paper goes right into our landfill. So that is ready to go for us here in just a minute. Our next step is to prepare our transfer. And you would think, Andrea, this is print and press, and so my transfer is ready to go. Well, it's not with shirts. While this is great for hard surfaces, with shirts, we want to do something called decaling the edge. And decaling the edge is a really super fancy way of saying tear your paper. Now, we don't want to fold and crease, because what we're trying to do here is create a very soft edge all the way around our transfer. So what I'm going to do here is just gently, and make sure I avoid my design, just tear the paper. I'm going to go ahead and do that around all 4 sides. And what this is doing is giving us a softer edge. So this is what's going to contact our shirt and not create those lines. If we were to fold and like crease our lines and then cut them, we're going to end up with a pretty harsh line still. And this is very soft and even takes away some of the paper, which is our reason for doing it. Now, you do not have to make this straight in the least if you're not a great paper tearer. Say that 3 times fast. Or 10 times fast. I couldn't do it. Just be sure to go slow so that you don't tear your design at all, because that would be fatal to our project and we'd have to start over with printing. All right, another tip that I use with doing designs, a lot of the papers are too thick to see through. So what I like to do is grab a ruler and a marker or a pen. Doesn't really matter what it is. I just want something you guys can see here. And I go ahead and mark what would be a straight line. Okay, you might need either a light box for this or potentially, hold it up to the light to do this. But all I'm doing here is marking the bottom of my word, and that just helps me go ahead and be able to put this on straight without having to try and see through the transfer constantly. And nothing is worse than getting your shirt press to find out that you have it crooked. Don't forget, all your sublimation papers and everything are recyclable. All right, so our next step is we want to get our shirt laid out nice and straight. And that means all our seams need to be in the right place and fully on our table. So I'm going to set a couple of these things down and away. So you want to make sure your shoulder seams are even. It doesn't matter if they're on the front or the back of your shirt. They just need to be evenly on your table. And then the sides, most shirts have seams down the side, and you just want to make sure that they are in the same spot on each side. So here I have it just to the back of my shirt. I need a bigger work table, guys. Okay, and then we want it super flat. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and lint roll again. You realize the fabric can't lint roll too much. We just want to make sure no lint has gotten on our shirt since we pre-pressed it, because if that's in the way, it may affect our transfer. All right, next up, we have our transfer almost ready. I'm going to get my handy dandy spray box here. And all this is a shipping box with some butcher paper in the bottom. You can also spray your repositionable spray over a trash can. Do not get this stuff on your floor. It is a nightmare. So all I'm going to do here is a light mist over that, okay? And the reason we want to do this over a trash can or a box is because it honestly gets everywhere. But now this is going to let me lightly stick this to my shirt. All right, I like to be about 3 inches to 4 inches down on a shirt. My goal today is 3 inches because this is a bit of a bigger design. So what I'm going to do is before I stick this down, I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to get my t-shirt ruler lined up. Again, you can do this completely with rulers. I just have this handy dandy thing to do shirts on. And what I'm looking for here is for these numbers to be even on the collar, and then this is my center. Don't always go with the tag. They don't always end up in the perfect center of a shirt. So that's why it's important that your seams are all in the right place. And then I put this cross piece on, and where I want to line up with that is the armpits of the shirt. Okay, this is why it's super important we lay out our shirt nicely and evenly. Now, shirts are not perfect, so you're going to have to adjust and understand that just a little bit, but we can double check ourselves as we go here. So one of the things, if I'm not seeing that the armpits line up perfectly, which is often the case, I like to slide it up and see where it's touching on the seam of the arms, okay? And that's just a second data point for me to know if I'm in about the right place. All right, and I want to make sure I'm centered. Okay, now I feel like I'm a little bit better positioned, and I'm just going to go 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. So I want the top of my design to be about right here. So what I'm going to do, this is sticky now, okay? This side is sticky, so you do have to be a little bit careful. Another trick that I do sometimes is you can fold and hold your transfer in half. Don't crease it, but if you just kind of pinch at the top and pinch at the bottom where your design isn't there, your actual writing isn't there, it can help you guide to approximately the middle of your design, which would be this line down my shirt. So I'm just going to gently lift this up and try not to move it too much and run away. That happens. Runaway design. And then I'm going to set it back down. Now, it's going to be harder for me to move this transfer because of the stickiness, and that's okay. We'll just adjust, and we kind of hold the shirt down as we kind of tug and pull just a little bit. So I can see the outer edge of my design here, and I want to make sure that it lines up evenly with the ruler. So right now, I'm a little bit to the right. I'm going to hold the shirt down, lift up my thing here because it was holding it down. But you're just going to have to fidget with it a little bit. I know a lot of people don't like to use the repositionable spray on fabric because of the fact that it is a little more labor intensive to get it positioned properly, but I find then I have far less ghosting, okay? And ghosting is when your transfer switches, like moves in your design. Okay, let's get this all perfectly lined up here again. It moves in your design and creates like a second press off to the side. All right, now I'm super crooked. So I want to go ahead and pull this down a little bit. All right, much closer here. All right. And now if I go to the edge of my design, just want to pull it back just a smidge. This is kind of something that you just take your time on. Now, if you're doing a big batch of the same shirts, it's going to get a lot easier. And honestly, this is harder to do on camera than anywhere else. You know, if you're making something on camera, it always makes it a little more difficult. And I like to triple check everything. I'm pretty anal retentive about all of that. The other thing I like to do is once I get it set on the shirt like this, I go ahead and press it down. And then I often pick it up and look at it. That's almost always the best way to note if it is straight or not. Now, I'm going to take my low tack high heat tape. Don't go using your Scotch tape. It'll make a mess. And I just like to put 3 to 4 pieces down. And all this is doing is if my repositionable spray fails, it won't move. That's all I'm doing here. All right, let's go ahead and take this to the press, and I will show you how to use the foam to make sure we get no pressing lines. Okay, now we're ready to press our shirt, but not so fast. I'm going to show you how I set up my shirts on the press to make sure that we have no pressing lines using that foam we had earlier. So what we've done now is checked that our design seems straight, and we're going to go ahead and get that position on the press. Now, you can do this on your work table as well. I just find that it's a little less work to do it on the press. Now, all I'm doing here is inserting this foam sandwich that we made earlier in between the layers of the shirt. This is going to be twofold. The foam is going to absorb some of that pressure, and we won't get the pressing lines. And it's protecting the back of our shirt from any ink transfer or blowout that would go through it. So it's a really important piece. If for some reason you don't use the foam, you really, really still have to put a piece of butcher paper in between the layers or thread your shirt onto the lower platen. If you thread your shirts, okay, I'm going to tell you if you do if you do big orders of shirts, I go ahead and I tape my foam to my lower platen, and then I just put new pieces of butcher paper over top. But when you thread the shirts on, if they are pulled, if you pull them taut and they are stretched over the corners, those little corners will not go away because high heat, guys, it really is all about the heat manipulating the fabric fibers. So be very careful that you're not overstretching your shirts. I would say it's fine to thread a large, extra large, 2X, 3X, all adults. All the rest, I would go ahead and do this way. Now, I don't make my foam slightly smaller than my design. I make it fit my design because I'm going to go with a pretty low pressure. Sublimation is really all about the heat because that is what is making sure the chemical process happens. With pressure, what we want is even. And that's what's going to make sure that the chemical process happens across our design. So just keep that in mind. Now, I added, of course, my blank piece of butcher paper here to protect my shirt from the press and to protect my press from the ink. Because once you get ink onto your shirt, or onto your press, it is a pain to get off. So every time we want to protect it. Now, I'm going to be pressing this at 390 degrees for 50 seconds, 50. And that's 390 degrees Fahrenheit. My pressure, I am still keeping at that 0 to 1, which I like to call a kiss pressure. And what that is it just slightly crinkles our paper and pushes down, but there is no pressure beyond slightly compacting our foam. And that is how I avoid all the pressing lines. I now have an even, consistent pressure, and that allows the sublimation to happen evenly, and I not have any blotching or anything like that. But I don't do enough pressure that I would also get the pressing lines. I hope that makes sense. All right, so this goes pretty quick. Luckily, shirts don't take a lot of effort in terms of time or energy. All right, now, for instance, if you have a clamshell press, you want to be very gently lifting that press up. If we pop it up, we may pop our design and unintentionally ghost it. So we want to be gentle with our press. All right, this, and I'm going to show you here. See how you can see that design on our paper, on our blowout paper? If I got that on my press, every time I do a project, that is going to get heated back up and put back onto my project. That is why blowout paper is so important. I also get the question a lot, why not use Teflon? Teflon adds moisture to our projects. Moisture is horrible for sublimation. So while I do have a Teflon thing here, because I accidentally got some ink on my bottom platen, it's not around or near my project. So you don't want to use Teflon as your blowout paper, because even if you wipe it off with alcohol every time, which seems like way more work than the penny cost of butcher paper, it doesn't always all come off. And then that's going to get on every project you do. So this is the one time I'm going to say the disposable option is significantly better, because you won't get ink blowout or anything like that. Now, to remove our transfer off the shirt, we don't want to move our project off the table until we've removed our transfer. So I'm going to grab one corner and I'm going to pull up and away so that it doesn't have a chance to adjust or move or get pressed again. Okay, so we're going to go up and away. Oh, that looks so cute. I don't know that my husband would appreciate me calling his shirt cute, but I think it's fun. Now, I have another trick that I use. This is cooled off a little bit, but sublimation happens at a higher temperature, and I want to make sure that this doesn't fold on itself or press on itself until it is cooled off enough. It takes like 10 seconds. It's not a big deal. But a little trick I have found to make sure that doesn't happen if you don't want to just sit here and wait is putting your hands through the collar of the shirt and just holding it out for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. It cools very rapidly once you do this. And a bonus, you can typically get the foam out that way too and let it just fall to the ground. Okay, let's go ahead and look at how awesome this shirt turned out. Okay, I think this shirt turned out beautifully. We're very, very straight. One way to check it, if you're not quite sure, is to fold at the corners of it and make sure that your lines are straight for the corner of the armpits. But I just think that looks super, super cool. And I think, and another thing, I just think that looks really, really cool. And another thing to note, the best part, now you're going to say, Andrea, I could have done this in vinyl. You sure could. But this is now permanent, right? Like there's no, what they call it is a hand. So when I crinkle it, all the ink goes with it. Okay? So with vinyl, if I did that, I would crinkle the vinyl. And this is just permanent. And in 24 hours, you can wash this, wear this, and it will last as long as the t-shirt lasts, which is a pretty long time. Well, I think our project turned out just awesome. We have, as you can see, there are no pressing lines. No ghosting, no issues. We got a great black print out of that. I am so excited to bring you guys these high quality craft tutorials and to help you on your sublimation journey so you can feel confident and excited to be doing sublimation. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and in the meantime, stay crafty.